Sim, can you hear me on the Zoom? Simcha. Can you test your audio?
Testing. Can you hear me?
Can copy. Thank you. I'm muting. Simcha, can we test your audio? Simcha. Yes, okay, don't forget, from now you're live, and so everybody will see you from now. Simcha, can we hear you?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, so you're on twice. I'm going to remove the one. For some reason, you're on twice. So 1 second.
I'm not.
Okay, I'm actually going to leave it. It's fine. Leave it as it is. I'm going to remute everybody. We're going to get underway in a few minutes. Rabbi Klein, can you just test your sound?
Hi, Mom. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
We can't see Rabbi Klein. Oh, we can see you now.
Okay, just gonna see if I can do. Yeah, this.
Hello.
We hear you, Rabbi Popek. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. בי' א' ניסן, תשל"ב, זה היה יום הולדת ה-70 לרבי, והתכוננו לזה בצורה בלתי רגילה. הייתי אז בחור בישיבה, ואני זוכר, למדו טניה בעל פה, גמרא בעל פה. זאת אומרת, זה היה המתנות שהיו נותנים לרבי, וכולם היו בכוננות, ולא יודעים הרבי יתוועד או לא. אבא שלי הביא לרבי ספר חוות יאיר, בתשובה עין, ממש 70. שם כתוב שמי שמגיע ל-70 שנה, חייב לעשות סעודה. אצלנו חסידים, פשט הוא התוועדות. בסופו של דבר, היה הרבי התוועד, והיה התעוררות מאוד גדולה.
So Silver gefragt, alleine wie bald, als ich da in Menschen sehen, bei ihm schieben schon noch, ich weiß, bleibt mir das da noch drin. Ich gehe, da muss ich das Zeit, das Trachten über den Opferungsach, und. Ganz wird das Essen, sie darf nicht gucken auf den Passport, sie darf gucken, wie mir fühlt sie.
It was energy. 70 people thinking about taking it easy, so the Rebbe said, now we want to start with W. My shver was in Yechidus. I think it was the time of the 70th birthday, actually, well, not long afterwards. And my shver was saying that he was thinking towards retirement. So the Rebbe stopped and said, I'm very sorry, Mr. Weingarten, but I don't understand that word. It's not in my vocabulary.
Afal die Kene sagt Mina Gisrol Tero. Auf die Flat wie steht ich habe es ja in der Rodebracht schon. Dort der Pirusch gepschute, in der Renfer was mit auf der Nachton, da steht er gleich noch der Ruf in Kosek wie ihm beglüht. Ich hatte damals, darf man noch im Ton, wie es Gabriel sie sehen.
Hashem, that was the English, that's the shir. Aleph, Shalom. Something else? The 70th birthday of the Rebbe wanted 71 new institutions as a birthday gift.
Hover Anila, Sola Sheri, Yucho, die alle was Donnen trugen mit Amisire und Sino, ist auch das, was man da reingetragen in Kern Ashivim, ist Berlin Neder, wird man gern, Sola Poch ist Achelik Ameise von der alle Zoi, was sie seine verbunden mit dem Jesed von Shivim ve Echad, Meises Chadoshim.
I quickly wrote a tzedek to get to Chanukah when he goes upstairs to the Rabbi Chanukah, when he goes upstairs to the Rebbe, to hand deliver to the Rebbe that I'm taking 10% of the 71 new institutions.
Open up on Fairfax, a show. This was the 70 mazes, only 1.5 mazes. And I used to stay outside with a stop sign, stopping and filming, and grab Jews, that's all, because you don't need a language for this. I eat in Fairfax is full of Jews. This was the way. I go to the Rebbe, how many people I used to count, and I put down 7,000, 7,011, and I sent it to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe was, I said in English, but he appreciated it.
Was gerät hier da Nissen, wegen der Minien von Aufstellen Lechol Apoche ist, 7 V'Yechad Mezes Chadoshim. was ist durchgegangen, 3 Gedoshim sind Dämmelt, Bemele sich kann Hamokin was man beedet sein, oder die, was haben stehen, aufgetan.
Der Rebbe Schlitte gibt Lechaim verschiedene Menschen, die haben aufgestellt Meches.
Wie viel hast du? 7? Kein Guido Ravrachi. Wie viel hat du gesagt? 7? Aber wie viel ist es? Und die, was haben das ja gedacht, in der Geschichte sein und haben das nie getan, sollen sie erreicht haben, ja für schon, achas kedem und tonnen dem, aufmachen als Schole mit der Simcha.
I had been in communication with Rabbi Kunin to become the Rebbe Shluchim in the Valley, California. In response to my written letter, outlining what Rabbi Kunin had offered me and asking the Rebbe to make us his Shluchim in the Valley, one day before the deadline, the day before the Rebbe's next birthday, the Rebbe answered in writing. The main thing, said the Rebbe to me in third person, that he, meaning me, should make a firm decision, sheyachlit, to work, laved, bemeretz, with alacrity, to work hard, ubi bitoch and chazak, and with tremendous faith and trust. And then the Rebbe said, I'll daven for you at the ohel of the previous Rebbe. I'll mention you in prayer. Ask it, I'll answer you. So the Rebbe's message to me, and I believe it's a universal message, is if you want to succeed, you need 2 things. Number 1, you need to make a decision to work hard. Ubi bitochen chazak. After you work very hard, you need a tremendous amount of trust in Hashem that your work will succeed.
Und das, was in der Gegend, der meiste Befehl, also Schuss, Arabi, Missayite, als die Ton kommen, als Leichter, wie mich stellt vor.
We became one of the last of the 71 institutions. But the words that the Rebbe wrote to us are words that I live with every day.
I remember the 70th birthday. People say that he was the new Bar Shem Tov. I rather compared him to the Maggid of Meserich. Though he never moved, he didn't travel. The Maggid of Meserich was the one actually who built. The Rebbe was right about it. He had the vision and wisdom and knowledge and everything else. But in practical life, he was an architect. He knew whom to send where. I think the Shaliach himself didn't know why he was sent somewhere. He knew. The Rebbe was an architect in this respect. He knew how to build.
Darf mal reinstellen mit der Starkheit, wenn mehrere gewahrt, als einer, ich sehe es Nicker begonnen. Sie ist auch Logik auf jeder Linie verbinden, mit der Misper mit Suya. Es soll der wie bald am geht Rieder von Schivi mit Schmeini, es will voll Apoches der Mescher schon so, soll zukommen Schivi wie Meist. Nicht einmal sich da sehen, was uns das Leid erschrecken, wie bald damit vermattet von dem Tanzen und mit dem Singen, wird nicht mehr im Leben sein, was von den Schreibes, was man nimmt auf sich, und befragt hat, dass nicht ein Schreibus, das eine von Schuss. Warum das Retter hat die meiste sich eine, was tust, was sie tolle in Tejelle, was bringt in Tejelle zu Arabien, ist Schuss Arabien tolle bei, und das, was in der Gegend, der meiste Befehl, also Schuss Arabi Missayite, als die Ton kommen, als auch leichter, wie mich stellt sich vor. Chover ani lechol asher liyucho die alle was wollen tonnen drufen mit Amisire und Sino is das was man da reingetragen in Kern Ashivim is Berlin neder wird man gern lochola pochis a chelik a meise von der alle Zoi weil sie sind verbunden mit dem System von Shivim ve'echad Meises Katoshim wir sollen sich nicht schrecken, Tomeriten gleich wel machen, bemerke schnell schon so, nicht schieben wie Echo noch schmeini. Und wer redt noch mit Wellen machen, mehr, ich habe allein Brochos, ich nicht sicher, nicht danken mit Nähe von dem Heilig am Meister, oder viele mehr vom Meister, Avise soll sein, der Schole von der Erzbaktaner soll kol Echot, wenn geht zu den Jonen, was Mansburg davon tut. Und soll kol Achas, wenn geht zu den Jonen, was früher was im Ubonis davon tun, mit Amisiru und Nisine. Und mit Mond nicht Stamme soll machen am Meister, diese soll zukommen, noch an Nord, wo erste Kleiden geben, a Kibbutz von der Chairman, mit der Treasurer, mit der Honorary Chairman, mit die alle Inyonim, und soll das dann auch ausdrücken, auf Stationary, und machen Headlines, wie sagt, da in alle Zeitungen, a Pläne, und welche werden zu dem Covid, bis wann es am Automatic-Krim gab, am Schunedecke, am Zoll von Nazis Abris, dem Menschen von dem Jahr, Kemon gehört so Achas war schon da der Jemakos. Also sein der Menno sie hier, Sagine was sagt, da Brise gefallen hat der am so. Mir Monne Schachide an Norden wie sie darf zu sein, es gedacht sein Vater im Jahr und da sein Norden im Jahr. Dieser Sami Mensch, was ein Mensch, mehr nicht wie ein Jahr allein, ist ein Seminar, dem Jahr ist ein echter Mensch, nicht was gesagt hier. Wohl gewinnt später, aber wird das gelernt werden, nicht wie ein Tag ist und mal gelächtet. Leider ist nicht gelächtet, aber Männer haben sie hier, dass sie mir in der Richtung ja, Mensch. Aber eben bekommt das nur rechts nutzen. Auf eine Linie von Tero und Miete, es geht jener mal Covid auf den Menschen von Jahr. Wir hatten gemacht für einen Menschen auf Achidisch, wie soll machen, am nächsten Chodosh. Und der Meister soll sein, am Meister, mit Jusser, da wir sehen, da Teile war Mitzweis, wenn wir das Skelen sich benodem la Chavede, mit Jusser, da benodem la Moki. Und damit wird mir sehen, als es werden die 71 werden sicher werden zweimal als sehr viel. Und viermal als sehr viel, wie noch mit der Benossen Homer Leil, Amische Jeschle Mone Reise Masayim und Masayim Reise Arbe Meis, und holig beheissig der Eid, bis wann es mit verschleißen der Welt mit den Jonen schon Tevel Gdusha. Wo demut wird das verschleißen der Welt alle Hores Deas Havayes, Kamayim Bayom Mechassim, wo das ist Robbringen der Gejula Hamitis Verschleimo. As Kulom Jedi Eisom, Eisi Miktanum Ve'ad Gdelom, Kimolo Hores Deas Havay Kamayim Bayom Mechassim, Bekore Mama.
This production is made possible through the generosity of the members of the GEM Foundation.
L'chaim and good Yontif. It's Yud Aleph Nissan, a day that is one of the great moments in Chabad, in Lubavitch, and may this day, the schus of the Rebbe, Mazali Gever, may this day bring Yeshuas with refuahs in every sense of the word to everyone who needs it, to the entire world, in the best and greatest way, l'chaim, l'chaim. No question that we would have rather sat together in one place, in one mokim, and to have this Farbrengen, and to inspire each other, and to sing together, and to say words of Torah, and to say words of Chizuk, and to celebrate your Aleph Nissan as we always did. Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter, had different plans this year. This year, the Eibishter decided that we're going to sit in our own place, and we're going to come together through the medium of technology. We often hear the concept of the refuah kedem lamaka, that the remedy comes before the illness. One of the remedies for this illness, Baruch Hashem, is that we are able to communicate with each other. Chas v'shalom, if we'd all be in our own situation, separate, not knowing, not hearing, not talking, picking up a phone. But now that we have this technology, we have to use it in the best way possible to bring about the holiness that the Rebbe saw in this world. And this is why, even though the situation has changed and we have a different method of sitting together, when it comes to matters of Kedusha, of holiness at a certain level, there is no such thing as limitation of time and space. Each individual can be in his own Daled Amos physically, and yet we're all together in the true sense of the word. Because the achdus that is created by an atmosphere of holiness, even though there is a distance and separation in time and space, those limitations don't exist when it comes to Kedusha. And this is why we should use this opportunity in the best possible way. And Baruch Hashem that we have this opportunity to bring together this year Yud Aleph Nissan. One of the advantages of Farbrengen in this sort of way is that we are able to reach out to our chavedim in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, but certainly other parts of the country. Normally, when we get together physically in one place or another, we are limited by the specific situation. We might have a guest here and there, but basically it's people from this neighborhood, from this area, from this city, from this province. With modern technology, we are able to call upon our chavedim who live a bit of distance from us, and therefore it gives me huge pleasure to call upon Rabbi Mendel Popek, who is the head shliach of Chabad in Cape Town, to share some words of inspiration and chizuk for Yud Aleph Nissan. Rabbi Popek.
Shukayach, Rabbi Lipsker, l'chaim to everybody. A good yontif. It's also a time, as Rabbi Lipsker said, that we should pray for one another and for our brothers and our sisters who need a bracha for good health, so the Eibusha should help. They should heal them quickly, and it should be Barucheinu Avinu, bless us, our Father Kulanu Ki Echad, as we sit together and we say l'chaim together. It's a time of uncertainty, and I want to share a few personal stories where we can focus on the power of positive thinking. So the first story I want to share is a story that is brought down in Likutei Diburim. In the beginning of Likutei Diburim, the Rebbe spoke about machshava moyeles, the fact that thinking about something helps. And not only helps, but it achieves something. And somebody sitting by the Farbrengen asked the Rebbe, "Nu, was hat man davon? What do we have from it?" The one who's being thought about. And the Rebbe answered, "Afula, a lot. Wo bist du gewesen farayorn? Where were you last year?" In other words, the Rebbe was thinking about him, and because the Rebbe was thinking about him, he was brought out from wherever he was so that he was able to be liberated and be able to come to the Rebbe. That person was my Zayda. Rabbi Teleshevsky, Mordechai Ber Teleshevsky, And the Rebbe was thought about him, and machshava, the thinking of the Rebbe had an effect on his on where he was brought from. That's one aspect. Once I'm speaking about the Zayda, I want to mention that when my Zayda was by the Rebbe on Pesach night, this is a personal story. But Pesach night he was by the Rebbe, and by the Seder, the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him to sing a nigun in the middle of the Seder, which was something which was not common. It was something that wasn't that wasn't done at the Seder night, and he asked him to sing a nigun, and he sang a nigun. I think the nigun that he sang was L'Chatchila Ariber. And a few minutes after that, 15 minutes later, the Rebbe asked him to sing another nigun. And the other nigun that he sang, he told me, was ya 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 ya. I think it's also a famous nigun. And he was astonished. He was wondering why was it that the Rebbe asked him to sing the nigun. But my mother, my father, Olav Shalom, lived in Buffalo. And on that night, the second Seder night, my mother went into labor, and she had a baby just at the time of the Seder. So the Rebbe is getracht wegen ihr, Rebbe getracht wegen the Chassidim. Es ist trachten, und der Rebbe ist a weiter Cook. The Rebbe's look he had a poignant look far away to be able to help those who were in need. The next day, my Zayda told me he didn't understand it yet, so he met my other Zayda in the mikveh. So the other Zayda told him Mazel Tov. He said, "What's the Mazel Tov?" He said, "Yeah, we had a baby." So he said, "How do you know?" He said, "We got a telegram from the hospital." So Zayda said, "What's that telegram?" So it's like in today's modern, people don't know what a telegram is. So he had a telegram, but he didn't see it because he didn't know what to look for. And that was when I was born. So that was that story from the Rebbe. But here we have two stories where the thought process of the Rebbe is important, and the Rebbe thinking about Chassidim, and Rebbe thinks about Chassidim and helps Chassidim through his thought thinking about them. I just want to focus for a few moments on the other side, on the side of Chassidim. Chassidim darften trachten wegen dem Rebbe. In Hasicha, Chelik Lamed Vav, the Rebbe writes about a story with the Tzemach Tzedek. He says the Tzemach Tzedek was once approached by one of the Chassidim who pleaded with the Rebbe to pray or to help somebody who was Rachmana litzlan very sick. And the Tzemach Tzedek turned around and said to him the famous words of Tracht gut, wird sein gut. Think positively, and it'll be positive. What does that mean? Think positive. Tracht gut, wird sein gut. The Rebbe goes on to explain that that's not a passive aspect of having trust and having faith. It's not a question of passively, hey, have a good thought. Have a good thought and it'll be good. That's not what it's all about. Tracht gut wird sein dort is a betochen that we have to affect within ourselves that takes a yegia, an avoda. It's something that's very hard to accomplish because what the outcome of it that has to be is that we should become peaceful and calm and serene as if we didn't have the problem. And that's very hard. The Rebbe explains that if we're able to accomplish that type of tracht gut, we evoke from heaven, from above, we evoke some super rational power that is beyond the normal order of events. And so the Rebbe explains that if we have miniyus v'yikuvim, if we have things that are difficult, what we can do is to have bitochen, the true trust in the Eibishter, that the Eibishter will help us, and we should become calm and have menuchas hanefesh and menuchas haguf, that it shouldn't affect us negatively. That's a very difficult thing to accomplish. What I want to just slightly focus a little differently on that and say that by us, today on Yud Aleph Nissan, Chassidim of the Rebbe need to tracht gut, tracht Rebbe. Think about the Rebbe. Think about a yechidus that you had. Think about an answer that we had. Think about some kind of connection that we had, an instruction that we had from the Rebbe, and live with that on Yud Aleph Nissan. That it should become something which is personal, it's not something which is superficial, something which is internal. Live with a word from the Rebbe that he sent you to your family, a story of the Rebbe that was meaningful to you. And in that way, you tracht Rebbe, the Rebbe will surely respond. The famous story of Reb Mendel Futterfass. Reb Mendel Futterfass, when he was in Siberia, what happened to him? He wasn't able to see the Rebbe, he wasn't able to communicate to the Rebbe, and he decided to have a yechidus with the Rebbe. So he put on his gartel, and he went and he stood in a corner, and he thought that he was going into yechidus. He imagined himself going into yechidus. Years later, when he left Siberia and he came, whoever he came to, his wife showed him a letter from the Rebbe that on that day, the Rebbe responded to him, I received your pan. The Rebbe, if we think of the Rebbe in strong terms, Mekasher Asme, we bind our minds to the Rebbe responds. He will respond with his brachos. And just as the Jews left Golus, Mitzrayim, it says, B'schus habitochen, because of their bitochen, they were able to be redeemed. So too today, our bitochen, the Eibishter, our bitochen in the Rebbe, just like we had bitochen in the Rebbe when we used to see him, so too our bitochen in the Rebbe and trachten Rebbe, but sein gut, it'll be good for us, for Jews, for a whole world, because of the Rebbe was and is the Rei Yisrael, the Manig Ha'olam. L'chaim.
L'chaim. As we continue, as Rabbi Popek just said, that this is a time that we have to spend a moment or two thinking about others. There's the well-known Hasidic Maisa, the Alter Rebbe, that what a Hasidic Farbrengen can accomplish, Malach Machol can't accomplish. So I'd like to mention our dear Chaber, our dear friend, the Rabbi of the Torah Academy Shul, the Rabbi of the Torah Academy Shul, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Ben Chana, a Refuah Shlema Kreva. He should have a speedy and complete recovery. Mamish now, the Eibusher should bless him with all sorts of brachas and to bring him back to what he has to do and how he has to do it, the simcha of Tuv Levov, and it should happen immediately now, l'chaim. Also to mention that good news, wonderful news. The brother of another chaver, Rabbi Raitport's brother Moshe, went home from the hospital today. Not long ago, he was in critical condition. And Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter, is keherifying in the blink of an eye. He brings about Yeshuas and Refuas. He still has a bit of a road ahead in terms of recovery, but he is strong enough to have left the hospital and to go home. And for this, we're Misameach. We rejoice with the family. May Kadosh Baruch Hu send that refuah to each and every one who needs it, mamish now. We'll now continue. We'll now continue with a nigun and another short video. I'd like again to thank Rabbi Popek for his inspiring words and the wonderful stories that he told about himself, about his grandfather and others. And may the words bring about the true machshava me'elis, that the Rebbe thinks about us and we should think about the Rebbe and we should think about each other in a positive way, in a loving way, in a holy way. As we all know, we're living in extremely, extremely dangerous times. And we don't know which way things are going. It's something which the world hasn't seen before. And all the doctors themselves are saying they don't understand, they don't know, they're learning from day to day. And what we do know is that what's going to happen after this is going to be not back to the old world. It'll be a new world, But in order to make a new world, we have to do something that'll bring about the newness that we so desire. Not only the healing and the removal of illness, but ultimately the entire Geula, the Shiach Tzidkenu. But we have to do something in order to bring that about. So the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov that I'm sure most of you know, about how a plague hit a certain town, and they didn't know what to do, and the Baal Shem Tov said they should write a Torah. And they wrote a Torah, and quickly thereafter, everybody started getting well again. Those that were seriously ill became healthy, and the plague disappeared. And from that, we have learned that in the time of Tzara, it's an important thing to write a Sefer Torah. So I want to first of all extend a huge etrikayach to Dubby Raven, who took the initiative and reached out to a member of our community to talk about writing a unity Torah for our community. This is something that the Shluchim have talked about, and we've thought about it, but Dubby took the initiative and he reached out to a good friend of ours, to all of us, Tzvi Gedelsky. And he said to Tzvi, this would be a perfect time for you to write a Torah and name it after your father. Benjamin Gedelsky, Olav Shalom, was a special Jew. He was a Jew who cared deeply about the meisters of the Rebbe. He cared deeply about the Rebbe. To him, these things were his life. And he gave of his time, he gave of his money, he gave of his ability and insight to help as much as he can. And therefore, he is a proper person after whom a Torah should be named. And this Torah now is going to be partnered together. It will be called the Binyamin Gedelsky Unity Torah. It'll be partnered together with the Torah Academy Shul, with the Hasidim Shul. It'll be permanently housed in the Torah Academy Shul. And the Torah itself is something which brings about a tremendous blessing of unity. I often wonder that story with the Baal Shem Tov, why of all things did he say to write a Sefer Torah? Sefer Torah, I mean, there's tefillah. Jews get together, whether through Zoom or sitting in a shul saying Tillim. The Rebbeim told us that the words of Tillim reach the highest levels. When Jews give tzedakah, they reach the highest level. Why was it necessary to have a Torah being written? I thought perhaps because the unity that is created by Torah is an altogether different type of unity. A unity that is higher than the unity of tefillah and the achdus of tzedakah. It's a unity which reaches to the very essence, and this is why we see by Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, what brought about Matan Torah was the fact that the Jews stood around the mountain, like one person with one heart. And we're told if one person was missing, and there were 599,000 Jews, one person, the Torah couldn't have been given. But it goes further than that. If one of the 600,000 Jews, the Shamas that were around Har Sinai, if they didn't participate fully in the Ishechat Kelevecha, the Torah couldn't be given. Because in order to bring down something as great as Torah, you had to have the power of Achdus. Because the power of Achdus reaches far beyond anything else. The world already had tzedakah. Avraham Avinu gave tzedakah. It was the ultimate expression of chesed. The world had tefillah. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They gave us Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv. What the world didn't have Torah. Yes, they learned Torah, but in a different sort of way. What the world needed was an incredible expression of Achdus. Not only that, you had to go through the darkness and pain and bitterness of Golus Mitzrayim for hundreds of years, suffering as they did. And only after they came out and were able to achieve Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, this is how Torah came down and changed the world entirely. Yes, we're going through a moment of darkness, but as a result of the efforts of a number of people in our community, the Achdus Teda will be written. And not only will the Achdus Teda be written, but in actual fact, we're going to soon switch to our Sefer, Rabbi Chaim Klein, who's going to begin the writing of Teda, where he does his Sufris, and we will all watch together as he writes the first words of Bereshis, and may the Haschola be a powerful beginning. And each and every one of us should know that we have to participate, and whatever funds are raised over and above what is necessary, the Gedelske family have underwritten the writing of the Teda. And whatever other funds are raised, and we need much funds, will be used for people who are going through difficulty, particularly in this time where people don't have jobs, and people don't have parnasa, and people are suffering. So this Achdus Teda of our community will change the reality, not only in our community, not only in our country, but in the entire world in Mirzajan, and join the other Sifrei Teda of unity and Achdus that are being written in the world today. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will certainly respond with tremendous Nisim ben Niflois, miracles and wonders at the very highest level. And now we're going to switch to Rabbi Klein, who is going to start the writing of the Teda. Rabbi Klein.
When we're writing the first letter, the base from Bereshis, as a shliach from the Rebbe's head shliach to South Africa, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Witzker. Areini Kosev L'Shem Dusha Sefer Torah. I am hereby writing for the sake of the holiness of the Sefer Torah, Uleilu Nishmas Rabbi Yovin Chaim Bereb Chaim Tzvi, V'lischus Harav Menachem Mendel Ben Chanel Refuah Shleima Ukroiva, and in the merit of our dear community, together with the whole Jewish community of South Africa, that in the merit of this Torah we should all be protected from the terrible virus and from all Marim Bishi. We should all be gesund physically and spiritually. May we all have a kosher and a Freilach and Pesach. May we zeicher to the final redemption B'Korov Mamesh, celebrating this coming Pesach in the Beis HaMikdash together with our beloved Rebbe the Nossi Ador. There we will have the special honor that Rebbe himself will be the one to complete this Torah with the final three words, Le'enei Kol Yisrael. Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, l'chaim, l'chaim elivrocha. So seien Sie gesund für alle Menschen. L'chaim.
L'chaim elivrocha, l'chaim. We should soon, as you say, write the last letters together with the Rebbe, l'chaim. Is Tzvi Gedelski out there? Maybe a bit later on when we'll get the technology a little bit more, well, running better, we'll maybe hear a word or two from him as well. As you know, the Seder of Farbrengen is that we ask somebody from the community to say a few words. And there's one guy that I've been asking for a number of years now, and he always refused me. But I took a chance again with him, and I have to say that this time he didn't refuse me. Maybe the matzav, maybe the fact that it's the technology, but I think that this is the right time for him to speak, because he is going to play a very, very active role in the Torah. He's going to represent the Torah Academy Shul together with others and the Hasidim Shul together with others, so that this Torah can reach the completion. We're speaking with Rabbi Klein, who's going to make sure that this is going to be a beautiful Torah written in the Alter Rebbe's Ksav. It's going to be a special Torah, something that we will all be proud of. It'll be housed, of course, in the ownership of the Torah in the Torah Academy Shul. But in Yirtzeh Hashem, if a Chabad house around the country, for whatever reason, needs a Torah for a special occasion, that Torah will be used. That'll be our community unity Torah. And now it gives me great pleasure to ask a good friend, Simcha Solash, to say a few words. Simcha, L'chaim, it's all yours.
Chaim Livracha, happy birthday to our dear Rebbe. Mazel Tov. I've been asked to say something about the Rebbe and my connection with him. My connection with the Rebbe started 30 years ago when I was 6 years old. My mother was attending weekly shiurim with Rochel Goldman, and I remember how I would wait with great excitement to hear the amazing stories about the Rebbe that Rochel would tell. At that time, my mother confided in Rochel that she had been trying for a few years to fall pregnant without any success, to which Rochel replied, "Let's write a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a brocha." My mother was keen, but she now had to get my father on board. My father at that stage in time thought that the idea was strange and declined. But my mother and Rochel persisted, and Rabbi Goldman gave my father a call and said, "What have you got to lose? It doesn't cost anything, just write the letter." My father agreed, and they faxed off the letter to the Rebbe, and within 2 weeks of sending the letter, my mother was pregnant with my younger brother. This event was a pretty big deal for our family, and in acknowledgement and thanks for the bracha, my parents took it upon themselves to no longer eat shellfish. Fast forward a few years, as a teenager, I would always observe how twice a week, no matter how tired my father was after a long day at work, he would excuse himself from the dinner table to attend shiurim at Chabad house. It was at these shiurim that my father got introduced to the young and enthusiastic Rabbi Shishler, who was looking to open a Chabad house in our area in Strathaven. My father took an instant liking to Rabbi Shishler and began helping him to find the right property for the shul. I was around 15 years old when Chabad of Strathaven was born, 2 houses away from my parents' house. Rabbi Shishler opened Chabad of Strathaven days before Rosh Hashanah in a makeshift shul in between the garage and kitchen. In those early years of scrambling to get 10 Yidden together and flagging down people going for their morning jog to help us make the minyan, it became apparent to me that my Saturday morning snooze in soccer were about to come to an abrupt end. Spending over 10 years in Rabbi Shishler's shul and watching the exponential growth take place serves as a tremendous inspiration to me. Some of my highlights of being in Rabbi Shishler's shul were the electric Shabbos Farbrengens, in which we were always challenged to go to the next level of Yiddishkeit, and going on Mivtzoyim on the Yom Tovim. I remember how on Rosh Hashanah day, Rabbi Shishler would eat a very quick Su'udah in order to spend the rest of the day pounding the pavements, looking for Yidden to blow the shofar for. But one of the greatest things that I learned from Rabbi Shishler is his love and passion for traveling to the Rebbe and taking people along with him. Having had the close observation of a true Chosid and Shliach who is completely living with the Rebbe has helped form and shape a lot of the things that I'm passionate about today. I was also very fortunate to have spent a year in the world-class Mayinot Yeshiva. At Mayinot, I was once again able to experience the most incredible shluchim of the Rebbe. Mayinot helped solidify my connection with the Rebbe through their warm embrace and pure Avas Yisrael for every Jew. It is incredible to witness the impact that Mayinot has on world Jewry and how they now have an alumni of tens of thousands of students, and that hasn't even scratched the surface of their impact and reach. as those students now have started their own families and have a positive impact on their communities around the world. After my Enot, when I returned back to South Africa, I found a house of prayer and study called the Kollel Erev Lubavitch. It is in this building that has served as a constant feed of learning and inspiration till present. I feel very blessed to have a weekly chavrusa with Rabbi Reitport and Rabbi Kesselman at the Kollel, and this definitely serves as a constant source of growth and enhanced connection with the Rebbe. When I got married 10 years ago, my wife and I decided to make Torah Academy, and in particular, the Hasidim Shul community, our home. My wife and I feel that it is such a great privilege to be a part of this amazing community, and we often make the remark that we feel like we have won the jackpot by being here. It has been an incredible journey being a part of the Hasidim Shul community from close to inception, and having watched how Rabbi Shochet has managed to harness the tremendous energy of the community, and how the community has also grown exponentially, Begashmius and Baruchnius. Every morning at 6 a.m., there's close to 1 million of Hasidim Shul members learning Hasidus before davening. I am humbled and take great inspiration from seeing the tremendous commitment and passion that this wonderful community has for Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Hasidim. Chaim v'livrocha.
Ist verstandig de Pashtus, als fällt und kommt zu Rahman al-Islam Acheli, Chodesh, was keinmal nicht gewähnt als Ami Machle Rahman al-Islam. Ist eine sichere Sache, wir können jetzt sein, mit der Refuis, was man genutzt, Nächten und Nächten mit der Deutsche Liefnisse, wie bald das Amach Cheli Chodesh, muss man ausgefinden, der Fuhrchadosho, muss eine sichere Sache, als mit suchen, wird sicher gefunden, warum der Rebester hat angestellt die Welt, als mag dem Refuhr lemaka. Noch jeder ist herabgekommen, nach Cheli Chodesh Rahman al-Islam, ist schön herabgekommen, lemata der Refuhrchadosho. Warum das kommt, Beten von Magdim, mit darf nur haben, der, was hat die Schlichus und den Schuss, als geht der Rappe, soll sich nicht stadel sein, bis mal Jekie, war nicht das Verhindern, gefunden, der Fuhr Chadosho, und wusste wissen, in was für ein Leben, und in was für eine Zeit, in was für ein Kamus Lechus, mit darf das nutzen, zu jeder Menschen bifnei Atzmei, was in der jeder Mensch ist ein Nelo Molle, und wir können verlassen sich auf Kloli, mit der Beidig sein, und Beidig sein bis Simas Lev, und bis Ewer Ponim Jofis, dem Cheli bifnei Atzmei, was danach kommen Kiveya sein, dem Eifen von der Rappe, und wie bald das Kufa Chadosh, und zusammen, was sie hat, Brochis Chadosh ist oder Fuis Chadosh ist. Hat sie Eche, der Einloch Kolje, Shei Meruba Mishal Chavere, wie die Gemara sagt, in Sof Seite, was Retze, als Achone zu Ichwese, die Mishiche, is Man Hagolus, is auch demut passt min zu, man muss haben, Davke der Refuhr Chadosho, onnebendig von Teira Mevia, Refuhr Lo Elon, a Chidush Lecheira. Aber der Chidush ist geworden, herabgekommen, ist Galle geworden. Durch Hatal mit Wossi, bemele das Muftach in Teiras Emes, a das Nemmer Leneshe Messina. Wo der Chidush von der Reinu Zeh, was nicht der Reino der Rebbe der Schwerot mit Galle gewählt. Die Zakone, welche was gefiet noch Yechidis Gula Kamos Man Lifnise, Miso Lerne, de Parshas HaShavua, in Yemei HaShavua, und in dem Gufe, dem nächsten Tag B'Shavua, von Ascholes HaSedre, bis Sheni, weil der Se, bei Yem HaSheni, von Sheni, bis Shlishi, weil der Se in der Yomim Shelifnise, und wie jeder Linien in Limud Atero, ist auch Limud Atrevi sein die Meise, und bei Pisgam HaYutur, was Nisi der Reino Kibel gegeben, von dem alten Reben, aber es soll leben mit der Zeit, mit der Treilig Betero, was Bim Juchat verbunden mit der Zeit.
Reb Simcha, continue.
Gaan. So there's a story of a mother who frantically called the rabbi, complaining how her son is now Shomrei Shabbos, only eats kosher and spends his time davening and learning Torah. The rabbi replied, well, what do you want from me? I also do all those things. To which the mother responded, yes, Rabbi, but that's your job. My son really means it. Well, I have to say that all these Rabbonim and community members that I mentioned really do mean it. And it is through their steadfast commitment and passion of being shluchim of the Rebbe that I have been so greatly impacted. And therefore, it is on the Rebbe's birthday that I would like to thank the Rebbe for sending his shluchim to South Africa and for making this country a place of Torah and Hasidus, and for bringing Yidden like myself closer to Hashem. It is my wish that I should merit to give the Rebbe a birthday present, that just like I have been so powerfully affected by all the above mentioned, I should be able to pay it forward and help to inspire someone else, and in particular, that I should merit to be able to raise children that are living with the Rebbe. In these troubling times of temporary separation, we feel a great yearning to return to our families, shuls, and schools. But after having experienced something that has impacted the whole world and our community so strongly, we need to respond even stronger. And we need to resolve that when we do come back, life as we know it will never be the same. We are going to be so much stronger, so much more united, and we will appreciate the amazing moistos that we are so blessed to have. And through our positive resolutions that we will make tonight on the Rebbe's birthday, specifically through us resolving to unite through our Torah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, we know that Hashem is going to stop this plague immediately, and that we should be zoiche to receive Melech HaMashiach, where we will once again be reunited with our dear Rebbe, who will lead us back to Yerushalayim with the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. Wishing everyone a kosher and a freiliche Pesach. L'chaim v'livrocha.
Simcha, it was worth the wait. Took a long time to get you going, but I'm thrilled. Baruch Hashem, and now if I call on you again, don't say no so quickly. Now that we know you know how to deliver the goods. A big yasher koach for sharing those stories and sharing those thoughts. Truly inspirational. I also want to say something. I said before that Simcha is going to be very involved in the terror campaign, the Unity Terror campaign, but we had some wonderful, wonderful news today. There was a children's rally of Tzivis Hashem, which is organized by Rabbi and Mrs. Zevi Weinberg. And from all reports, those are the most magnificent and beautiful rallies. The kids just thrive and grow and they love it, and it's la'ela la'ela. And today, at the children's rally, Rabbi Weinberg was in contact with Davi Rabin and my son Levi, who are working together in the Teda campaign. And they announced this special campaign to the children. And the children already bought letters in this Sefer Teda. Now, I'm thrilled, as I'm sure you are, that the very first people, other than the Gedelsky family, of course, Tzvi and his family, the very first people who have bought letters in the Teda are children of Tzivos Hashem. Tzivos Hashem, we know, is the brainchild of the Rebbe. He created it. It became one of the biggest movements in the world. And the Rebbe was always devoted to the children in the most beautiful way. You ever see a world leader like the Rebbe spending time speaking to children at rallies like Beimer throughout the year, giving them dimes and nickels? The Rebbe had a special love for children. And of course, Torah is very much connected with children. As we've learned just recently, even when we're building the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, you cannot interrupt the learning of Torah that children do. May their participation in the Achdus Torah, the unity Torah of us here in South Africa, may their holy words of Torah, may the psukim that they said at the rally, may all of this call out to Hashem with tremendous power and receive the proper response. I also want to mention, Rabbi Weinberg said to me that he had a lot of help from Rabbi Johnny Altman for the rally today. So big eshekayach. I don't know if you're on, Rabbi Johnny, but you are. You have a tremendous chus, and thank you very much for being so helpful with Tzivos Hashem today. L'chaim. You can say wherever you are, say l'chaim. It's an opportunity. You don't have to worry about Uber. You don't have to worry about driving home. You don't have to worry about anything. You're sitting at home. I mentioned earlier on a different occasion that we used to love the Aleph Nissan Farbrengen. Why? Because what happened was, by the Aleph Nissan Farbrengen is not at the Rebbe's Farbrengen, but the Farbrengen of Chassidim. People would bring the mashka they had at home. They didn't want to sell it into chametz, the chametz for Pesach. So would they bring the half bottles? But there were a lot of half bottles. So if you have some half bottles, bring them out. If you're in the middle of a suda, participate. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
We have Tzvi Gadelsky is with us.
Tzvi, all yours. You have a wonderful schus.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I on?
You're on.
You're on.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to everyone that made it possible. First and foremost, Dovi Rabin. We've been toying back and forth with the idea of a Torah for my father for about a year and a half, and it never came together. And then obviously with the Ace Rotzen, with the when he sent me the letter, I wanted to verify the story. So he sent me the actual letter. I think it's in the Friedrich Rebbe's letter, if I'm not mistaken, but I saw it in black and white, and then I was okay. So, and on the back of that, we started to discuss it seriously and to take it really seriously. And then Bashkocha, we heard that the Torah Academy Shul wanted to actually do one, and we thought that what an amazing opportunity to join forces. And at the end of the day, it was my father's shul for many years, and it will be a beautiful mokum. It will be the perfect mokum, the perfect place for his Sefer Torah, please God. Not only the skula based on the story of the Baal Shem Tov, but I think also you basically saying to the Eibishter, I'm writing a Torah, I want to go to shul, I want to hear the Torah read in shul, and you're pushing the Eibishter's hand. You're saying, listen, we're writing the Torah, we want to be able to actually listen to this Torah in a shul. Make it happen. That's your problem. It's not our problem. You need to make it happen that we can go back into shuls. So I also want to thank Levi Lipsko. We had a brief discussion with, and then on the other side, or we're on the same side, but Yossi Libero, I've also had discussions with, and is a very enthusiastic and good operator. And I think with all the forces involved, I think it will definitely be an amazing project, and something that will have a lot of atzlacha, and please God should bring gesund and parnasa to everyone in the whole community, and please God from there to the entire world. Thank you very much, and l'chaim.
Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Tzvi, don't go away. You're a Baal Menagen. Lead us in a nigen, a freiliche nigen.
Freilich nigen. So I think with Tal coming up, maybe we should sing. It's Freilich. It's the Mashma Neinu Al Yerozin. We were so used to so much fat for so many years. Maybe she should give it back to us a bit.
Go for it.
Doit keyer khamet shmeinu kan roves imenu betal tal boite vorech mozoin tal boite vorech mozoin b'mashemanenu al yirozoin al yirozoin b'mashemanenu al yirozoin al yirozoin hayumo asher isato katsoin ono tofek lorotzoin betal l'chaim
As you said so cleverly, God has to make sure that we can read the Seder very quickly together in a shul. It now gives me great pleasure to call on our third speaker. Our third speaker is not a stranger. We once had the privilege of listening to him speak on one of his visits here. It's my dear son-in-law, Rabbi Shimon Freundlich from Beijing, who has recently become world famous. Not that he wasn't world famous before. I mean, you think a person lives in Beijing halfway around the world, that who knows about them? But so many people. The wonderful work that he and his Rebbetzin do in Beijing. He became world famous recently because he became the spokesman, the teacher for how to behave and to protect ourselves during this difficult time. Quite outspoken, and he spoke to people around the world. And they took his advice, and I'm sure as a result of that, many, many nefashos were saved. It gives me great pleasure to ask my dear son-in-law, Rabbi Shimon Freundlich, the Shliach of the Rebbe to Beijing, to address us.
Thank you, Shver, and thank you to all the speakers and for all the participants. Mazel Tov and Agut Yom Tif. The story I'm going to tell you started 9.5 years ago. It was Erev Yom Kippur, about a half an hour before Kol Nidre. And it's usually a very stressful time for me. It's very intense. As you know, the Chabad minhag to bless your children is only once a year on Erev Yom Kippur. It takes a lot of mental preparation. What exactly you want from each child, what you're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bless each child. In addition to the fact that I daven all the tefillahs, I lay and I speak, it takes a lot of preparation. I'm sitting in my office and a man walks in, young guy, and he puts down 36,000 RMB on the table. That's the equivalent of $5,000. And he said, this is from my grandfather. I said to him, we're about to start services. If you could do me a favor, please, and leave me the number to your grandfather so I can call to thank him. He said, no. My grandfather died many years ago. So I said, please explain what you mean. He said, I'm not religious by any stretch. I'm married to a Chinese woman. My grandfather came to me in a dream 3 nights ago and told me that the holiest day of the year is coming up. You must go see the rabbi. There's a custom to give charity before this day. He said, I woke up the next morning, I didn't think anything of it, and I went about my day as usual. He said, that night, I went to sleep and I had the dream again. And that's why I'm here. And he said that he comes from a very illustrious rabbinical family from Italy. Okay, fine. I turned around after Kol Nidre, and he had already left shul. He contacted me after Yom Tov, we got together. I noticed every time he came to the Chabad house to meet with Dini and myself, he would come there with 4 domestic helpers. He would come with one of those minivans that are bulletproof. And I had no idea why. It was a little bit strange to me. So I asked him, I said to him, what is this all about? So he said, listen, I want to tell you something, but don't tell anybody. I'm saying this story with permission, obviously. Since then, he doesn't mind. He said, my wife is President Xi Jinping's niece. Xi Jinping, president of China, has 2 sisters. One of his sister's daughter is married to this Yid, Daniel Foa. In any event, we became very close over the years. And he runs a Chinese government charitable organization, amongst many other things that he does for the government. Fast forward 9.5 years, with the outbreak of COVID-19, everybody fled China. I'm talking about the foreigners. I called my shver and I asked him what I should do. I'm saying everybody, I'm talking about every single shliach as well. So my shver said that his instinct would be for me to stay so long as it is safe. However, in a situation like this, the Rebbe would always instruct somebody to ask a Reifa Yedid, and perhaps even 2, as well as a Rov, a Meira Hira, which is exactly what I did. I called up Rabbi Moshe Gutnick from Australia, who's been to Beijing a number of times, and I asked him what he thought. He told me that he has to hear from the medical professionals first before he could give me the answer, which is what I did. I put them in touch with each other, and that's the reason why I stayed there throughout this entire time. One of the things that I was doing there was providing masks and surgical gloves, hand sanitizer to members of the community that was still there, other Jewish people around China, the Chabad staff and their families, the Chinese, as well as our school and their families, people from the Religious Affairs Bureau. You have to understand, all of the masks initially were taken by the government because they needed them for Wuhan, which is in Hubei province. So there was a shortage around the entire China. I saw this earlier on, and therefore I organized with different organizations around the world to donate masks to us. Also, the Chabad house is attached to a park. I gave the staff of the park, and that's what I did. Whenever I got a new batch of masks, I used to put a message on the Jewish community WeChat group, which is the equivalent to WhatsApp, the Chinese version. And there's also another group called Yisraelim B'Sin. 500 Israelis living around China in these remote places. I get a message from an Israeli guy, his name is Gil, and he tells me that he is living in Wuhan. There's only 2 Israeli families living there. He's one of them. Wuhan has been completely locked down. No one goes in, no one goes out. The only thing you could send to Wuhan was medical supplies, but unless it was coming from a government branch, it wouldn't get into Wuhan. And he told me, he said, I have a small baby and I need baby formula. I need diapers. I'm in a desperate situation. I said, fine. I called the manager of our restaurant and I said to him, can you please call a certain delivery company in China and ask them if they're delivering packages to Wuhan. So he came back to me and he said that they're delivering packages to Wuhan, but so far they haven't been matzliach at all to get any packages actually in there. So they're waiting there at the entrance, and by Hiyayoim, they'll open it up, then they'll send in all the packages. One thing I learned from my shver many, many years ago, that when a chassid needs something to get done, he writes to the Rebbe. So I sent a list to my manager of exactly what I need. 3 big packages of diapers. I went to the store we have in the Chabad house. I took Israeli coffee. I took Bamba, Bisli. Of course, the medical supplies that he needed. I made a big package. And I told my manager to call the company and tell them to send it to Wuhan. I gave him the address. And I wrote to the Rebbe. And I said to the Rebbe, there's a Yid living in Wuhan. And he has a baby and he needs these supplies. And this is what the delivery company is saying. This is what's actually on the news. Fine. I sent the package. 2 days later, I get a message from Gil that he received the package. And this is the note that he sent to me. Rabbi Shimon, I just received your package. I want to say how much I appreciate your help. This is so kind and thoughtful of you. I grew up a complete atheist in a kibbutz. I was brought up with a low opinion of people of faith, and I feel ashamed now that I saw things in such a dogmatic, narrow-minded way. You and the people that work with you to help others are amazing. I'm sure you hear this very often, but I mean it in the most sincere way. Receiving this package really is going to help us, and without your help, we would have reached a very difficult situation. Thank you again for your kind gesture. I wrote this message rather than record because my baby is asleep. I hope it doesn't offend. So to me, receiving something like that as a yid, that a Jew should speak favorably about another Jew, in it of itself is a beautiful thing. I was so excited with this message that I sent it to the president's niece. And this is the message that she sent me back. How did you send the supplies, Rabbi? We have some students with babies in need. Is it a company that's linked to the Jewish community? Amazing. So I left her a voice note of exactly how I did it. And she responded, thank you, Rabbi. I think you have to understand that Judaism is not a recognized religion in China. This is coming from the president of China's niece. She writes to me, thank you, Rabbi. This is like a message from the universe. We are struggling to send items to the international students in Hubei. I was just having a call on how to deal with this. Then I see your post. I called my shver and I said to my shver that sometimes, especially as time passes by, we think to ourselves, where's the Rebbe? We need the Rebbe. Is the Rebbe thinking about us? Like Feta Mendel said in the beginning, Mashava Mayeles. Think about this story for 1 second. The president of China's niece, with all her connections, cannot get a package into Wuhan. The Rebbe's chassid sitting in an apartment in Beijing, a 2-hour flight, is somehow able to get a package there in 2 days. No, I'm asking you, is the Rebbe mit uns? 1,000%, 1,000%, and more. Later on, she sent me a picture of the packages going to Wuhan when I told her how to get this done. And she saw on my WeChat moments, different people leaving me messages of thanking me, Chinese people. She said to me, the many messages you receive is a confirmation from the universe that your teachings are right on track. You are where you should be, our dear Rabbi. Beijing shines more brightly with you and your family in it. Thank you for sharing. I felt a bit sad today, but your message made me feel better. At one point, she asked me, Rabbi, can I ask your advice and call you right now? So I said, yes. And we spoke for about 45 minutes. After I put down the phone, she sent me a message and she writes, you have been chosen to be the teacher by the Chinese people. China is a communist country. Judaism is not a recognized religion in China. And the president's niece is calling the rabbi for advice and saying that the capital of China shines brighter because the Rebbe Shluchim are there. In Aleph Nissan is the birthday of the Rebbe. If the head has a birthday, so the guf, which is us, also have a birthday. The Rebbe encouraged us on birthdays, instructed in fact, that we should take achlotas tevis. For tomorrow, Yud Beis Nissan, to be the same as Yud Nissan or Yud Aleph Nissan is not good enough. We have to actually do something. We have to take a hachlata, whatever it may be. There are so many different areas, and particularly in the Torah of the Rebbe. As the Rebbe said in 1972, that those who are thinking about giving me a birthday gift, they should first and foremost think about the area of Torah, Nigla and Chassidus. It was a number of years ago, I came to the Ehel, and the Moshe Pinson from the Shluchim office told me that there was a group that was here from Brazil, and there was a shliach who was supposed to speak to them by the Ehel, but he didn't show up. Would I speak to them? I thought to myself, like, what am I going to speak to them about? If they've already made it all the way to the Ehel, that means they know about the Rebbe. What am I going to tell them? It's another story, something else, another Torah that the shliach hasn't told them. And I had the following gedank, and this is what I told them. That the Ehel is the only place in the world that I know that is called an Ehel. B'derech klal, it's called a tziying, it's called a kever, but by us, we call it the Ehel. And of course, there's the reason al pi nigla, because an Ehel is, the translation is a tent, and a tent is something which is temporary. And until Mashiach comes, everything is temporary. Mashiach comes, everybody's going to go to Eretz Yisrael. But the gedank I had was, this was my understanding, and this is my understanding. Ad hayom is whenever I go to the Ehel. Anyone who ever came to the Rebbe and told them about a certain accomplishment that they did, the Rebbe would congratulate them on that accomplishment and then encourage them to do more. You see it the whole time. People go past the Rebbe, somebody gives a sefer to the Rebbe, they just finished the sefer. The Rebbe gives them $1 to participate in that sefer and then gives them another one for the next sefer that they're going to write. And very often you see the reaction from the people. No, they weren't thinking about doing another sefer, but that was the Rebbe. Great, here's for the first accomplishment, but there has to be another accomplishment. People went past the Rebbe and said that they lit Shabbos candles. The Rebbe says, put a stock of pushko next to the Shabbos candles. Always something extra, which means that to the Rebbe, your spiritual state that you are in right now is temporary. It's like an oil. Because tomorrow has to be better than today. So therefore, when you stand by the oil, when you write a letter to the Rebbe that's going to be read at the oil, one needs to have that frame of mind that the hachlata they are going to take, that is going to create the vessel for this bracha that they're asking for, has to be something more than the day before. We're Chassidim with Farbrengen, and I want to conclude with a hachlata that I took myself today for my family. The Rebbe said that one of the ways to make sure you do the hachlata is to say it publicly. Another one is to do it right away. So I'm going to do it right now with everybody here. And I'm going to send it to my family chat. My hachlata is that at least once a week, I will learn with each member of my family something about Geula Mashiach. If I can't do it on the phone, I will do it on the family chat. But the world today, people can feel, can sense that Mashiach is right here. It doesn't, you don't even have to convince people anymore. People are wishing it to each other, people who never would have uttered the word Mashiach and Geula. I'm not talking necessarily about Lubavitch. That is the pulse in the world today. So for me, this is what I'm going to do. But it's a suggestion. And this is really what a Chassidische Farbrengen is all about. That tomorrow has to be different than today. If today was good, tomorrow has to be better. Of course, one has to be sensible and reasonable and calculated and make sure that the achlotas that they're going to take is something that they're able to do and they're able to grow from that. But there has to be something better about the tomorrow than the way we lived today. So I'm going to read now something that the Rebbe wrote the Rebbe spoke about on Shabbos Parsha Shmini in 1974, almost 46 years ago. And then I'm going to send it to my family chats, and that will be the beginning of my hachlota from today, from the Farbrengen. The Rebbe says that Hashem doesn't perform unnecessary miracles. Rather, every miracle is necessary to accomplish some goal and to teach us a lesson. The same applies with the psukim, the verses and teachings that discuss the miracles of Mashiach. Although these sources tell us what will occur at that time, the main reason these predictions are recorded is not simply to tell us about the future. Instead, every account is meant to teach us a lesson. We must realize that if that is the way things will be when Mashiach comes, I must do something now to make that happen. Chassidim l'chaim, let us be inspired by this day to take achlotas tevis, to continue reaching out to people and spreading the message of the Rebbe. Let's teach people how to look at another Yid, how to look at another human being, how to learn Torah, how to have midas tevis, how to impact the world just by the Rebbe's example. There are videos, there are countless websites, there are so many printed Svarim in all languages. There's no excuse today not to know exactly what the Rebbe wants from us in order for us to actualize the dream of the Rebbe, to prepare this world for Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'mheira V'yameinu Mamish L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. I'd like to again thank our speakers, Rabbi Popak from Cape Town for his words of inspiration, Machshava Mayelis, to Rabbi Klein for letting us share that special moment of the beginning of Aksiba Sefer Torah, to Simcha, who spoke so beautifully about his own journey, to my dear son-in-law, Rabbi Freundlich, for sharing his stories, to Tzvi Gedelsky for sharing his thoughts. What a magnificent Farbrengen. On the screen, you're probably going to see right now about the Unity Torah, which is on its way, as you saw earlier on, and Mirza Hashem, it'll be finished ASAP. I want to thank my son Levi for taking care of the technological issues over here, putting it together. It's not an easy one. Sometimes the sound is not so perfect, but what a wonderful experience. There are about 200 units watching. I don't know how many people are watching in every home, but there are 200 gadgets watching, whether it's iPads or computers or smartphones. 200 of them are listening in K'nai Nahara. And the Seder will be as follows. But before I tell you the Seder, I want to tell you a word with which we have to think about carefully. A great many people, I call people, I talk to people, a great many people, when are we going to return to normal? And I say to them, the normal of yesterday, that's not what we're returning to. That's gone. Because who says it was normal? When we first came here in 1972, we lived in a small apartment in Berea on the edge of Hillbrow. And one night I was driving back, I'd gone to the shops, and I see a man's walking with big hair and armies. I'm not going to mention names, some of you know the story. For some reason, I instinctively felt this person was Jewish. I pulled over. I asked him his name. He looked haggard. He looked tired. He looked like he was in a different world. I said, come with me to my house and have something to eat. And that developed into a wonderful relationship. And story after story after story. But Baruch Hashem, we managed to get him to go to Kfar Chabad, to the yeshiva. And he had originally come from Zimbabwe, where he was in medical school, but he couldn't handle it. He didn't want it, and that was it. But we went to the airport to say Tzeischem L'Shalom. And in those days, we were able to go out on the balcony at the old Jan Smuts airport. You could actually see the person going to the plane, walking into the plane taking off. And this guy's father came down from Zimbabwe to say goodbye to his son. And as the El Al plane was taking off, I turned to the father and I said, "No, what a proud moment." Father says to me, "I wish he was a doctor." I said, "What are you talking about? This is what he ran away from. He didn't want to be a doctor." You can't go back to the normal of yesterday, because that's not normal. We're going to get out of this one. And boy, are we going to get a wonderful surprise when we get out of this one. This thing didn't happen before. What's going to happen right after this didn't happen before. As our speakers told us, we're walking into the arms of Mashiach, Emir Hashem, the Hisgalus of Mashiach. Yud Aleph Nissan, what a day. And the Seder is going to be now as follows. Going to put up a video, which will run for about a half hour, 35 minutes. For those who'd like to stay on and watch, I suggest you do. And then sit around with whatever family you have at home and say L'chaim and Farbrengen till the wee hours. I'm sure if you want to join other Farbrengens afterwards, Farbrengens overseas, you take a look on Chabad.org. There's a bunch of Farbrengens going on the whole time, and you can join into that as well. So again, Yashakayach to all those who made tonight so special, our speakers, Levi, and all those who put together the Teda, the evening. And in Mirza Hashem, we should celebrate together soon. L'chaim, l'chaim, homa kosher and freilich Pesach in the full sense of the word. Whatever kind of Seder will be sitting at the Mirza Hashem should be over the top, especially Ashakayach to the balabastas, to the ladies. They it's a funny thing about the ladies. They work really hard in order to bring Pesach around. And perhaps one day we'll talk about it. They don't even get a mention in the Haggadah, but that's a different story. That's a whole different discussion. Kosher Pesach, emphasis on kosher, super emphasis on Freilich, and this year we have to add a kosher and Freilich and gesunden Pesach. Maybe should help us. We should, well, do what we have to do. Do it b'simcha b'tuv levov, with happy hearts. L'chaim, l'chaim. Please stay for the video.
This production is made possible through the generosity of the members of the GEM Foundation.
Hello and welcome. My name is Elkanah Shmatkin, and I'm the Director of Jewish Educational Media. Thanks very much for joining us today. In the past, in this series, which we've called GEM Presents, we've taken complex topics which the Rebbe often speaks about on many different occasions. We've tried to study the Rebbe's position on it well, organize it, and present it to the best of our ability. But here, today, the situation feels unprecedented. And people have been asking us what the Rebbe would have said today. Now, when you word it that way, no one can really answer that question. But in truth, we do have the Torah to rely on. Advice, videos, the Rebbe's talks that can help us navigate this present situation. So we've gathered together some of the different things that I think and I hope you'll find relevant to this situation. We'll talk about how we're not alone. We'll share some practical advice for parents. And we hear so much about emunah, bitachon, faith. We'll talk about what that means and how, in a practical way, we can actually achieve that. But before we start, I want to wish a full and speedy recovery, a refuah shalema, to all those who need it. To those of you well enough to watch who are in isolation, we are with you. Your brothers and sisters, all of Klal Yisrael is with you. You're not alone. To the families who are grieving, the entire Jewish nation grieves with you. May Hashem console you with the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And to everyone else, please listen to what you're being told. Stay in isolation. It's Yiddishkeit, it's Judaism 101. Honestly, I think and I hope there's no one left who needs to be convinced of this. But if you need an example, there's the well-known story that we've heard so many times that Alter Rebbe himself, on Yom Kippur, went to chop wood for a mother who had just given birth. Just stay home. That's all we're being asked to do. Thank you very much to the members of the GEM Foundation and to the sponsors of this specific program. Okay, let's get started. To me, one of the most poignant starting points is that we're not alone. The entire world is suffering. Hashem's creations are suffering. The Jewish people are suffering. But we are not alone. And this is a theme that the Rebbe spoke about, especially on Lag BaOmer, but many other times as well. A Jew is never alone. So at this Lag BaOmer parade in 1984, the Rebbe speaks on a statement of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Kol mokim shegolu shchina yimohem, as ani der pshat chas v'sholem, as a yid gefindt sich in Golus, Und der Rebischter gefindt sich in sein Palace in den Himmel und guckt zu von eben, was tut sich mit der Jiden unten und geht ein Bruches, sagt Shimon Bar Yochai, nie das in der Ruf zu. Der Ruf zu ist, dass der Rebischter gefindt sich und dort, wo sie gefindt sich, jeder Ried. Und Bishas Ayid gefindt sich in Golus, ich China immer. Gefindt sich dort der Rebischter zusammen mit ihm in dem Golus. Und verstandig nicht gefindt sich dort. Wie seitiger Inyan, nur gefindt sich dort in der Neffen, was beholt zur Rossum, leid zur. Bishas Ayiden wird eng. Nachmas der Mine von Golus, zieht es wer der Einkeit in Ruchnis, oder a viele Begashmius, ist auch damals sagt der Rebischter, als hat dieselbe Leiden, mit derselbe Schwerkeit, mit derselbe Einkeit, wo das ist so Rossom von Akiden, bei Golus, nicht und was für a Golus soll nicht sein, zieht das der Erde, oder wie der rechte Golus in Bovel ist beholt zur Rossum Leitzor, wo der Funde doch verstandig, auf wie viel Mehode Siyua, der Hilfe von der Nebelsten, auf Fieber kommen da alle Schwierigkeiten, worin der Rebischter sich qua Jochla reingestellt, als hat dieselbe Schwierigkeiten, und Lama Jemra HaGoyim, Ajeja Lekehem, und war Vater doch verstandig die Stadlers von den Nebelsten, aber die Gejule soll kommen, was früher. Sie darf aber sein, beholt zur Rossum Leitzor, aber das soll eng machen, Echeta Jiden, also soll schreien ad Mossad, wenn sie kommen die Gejule, und der Rebischte wird Ares von Golus, und mitnehmen mit sich, und alle Jiden werden Ares von Golus, und wir abschienen bei Yochai Mamschich, als nie der Inyan ist, als Tage der Rebischter gefindt sich in Golus, aber beim Ares von Golus, geht der Rebischter Ares mit einer Zeit, jeder der Jiden gehen Ares, oder al kol ponim a rega eder Jiden gehen Ares, sagt Shimon Bar Yochai, als a Jid mag sein ruhig, als jeder Rege, was gefindt sich in Golus, mit den ein und einzigen Rege Farder, geht der Rebischter echt nicht Ares von Golus. Der Adra, der Vishova, weil der Kirche Schwuscha, und der Rebischter geht Ares von Golus Schwuscha, Bishas nimmt Ares und sagt, Asiden geht von Golus, und damit geht der Rebischter Ares mit sich zusammen von dem Golus.
You could hear that the Rebbe was actually crying there at the end. And it's a point the Rebbe emphasized often. Bernie Rader from London was once visiting New York, and he sent a note into the Rebbe saying, my granddaughter is going to be flying from London as an unaccompanied minor. He asked for the Rebbe's bracha that she have a safe trip. So the Rebbe crossed out the letters UN, and after the word unaccompanied, added the words by Hashem, turning unaccompanied minor into accompanied by Hashem. But how does this work? How do we train ourselves to know and feel that we're accompanied by Hashem? The third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, after whom the Rebbe was named, someone wrote to him that he was sick and he was very, very worried. Tzemach Tzedek told him to stop worrying because that was making him more sick. And then he writes, on the way to battle, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, would stand up in front of the ranks of soldiers, and as the verse says, "V'amar aleim Shema Yisrael, atem krevim hayom lamilchama." You are about to wage war upon our enemy. Do not let your courage falter. Don't be afraid of them, and don't panic. And Maimonides, the Rambam, says that that's a commandment. It's a mitzvah not to be afraid. Very well, but a person sees the blood of battle, and he's afraid. It's very natural. His heart leaps, he panics, The Torah can only command us to do something that's within our control. So what kind of commandment is this? The Tzemach Tzedek explains that every person can consciously choose what to think about, what to speak about, and what they do. You're terrified, you can't control what happens around you, but you can control your thought, your speech, and your actions to pivot away from your fear. So this is what it means when we're commanded, don't falter. Don't think about things that will cause fear. We shouldn't speak about it in that way, but rather the opposite. And that's what the Rambam writes as Jewish law. Anyone who brings himself to panic and terror by thinking such thoughts transgresses a prohibition. So when we stop thinking about these things, the fear in fact subsides. And actually the Tzemach Tzedek writes that I heard this from my grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, the night that he passed away, and he told it to me in the name of his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich, adding that according to the attitude a person displays here below, this is what he's mirrored, this is what he's shown from above. I once heard that somebody asked the Rebbe shortly after the Six-Day War. Before the Six-Day War, the Rebbe had stood up, and now there's a very famous film of that. The Rebbe stands up and he says everything is going to be fine, and the Rebbe encouraged people to stay in Israel despite the fact that there was absolute panic. This was very widely published at the time. So somebody asked the Rebbe, how were you able to take all that responsibility upon your shoulders? And the Rebbe answered simply, it's a verse in the Torah. Al yerach levavchem. You're not allowed to fear. You're not allowed to cause others to fear. You must do this. And of course, everything turned out fine. But that was the simple answer that the Rebbe gave of how he was able to do that. But it's not only a way to distract ourselves or something to tell ourselves. It actually changes the situation. The Rebbe gave this guidance very often as well. In the name of the Tzemach Tzedek, tracht gut wird sein gut. If we think good, it will be good. It will become good.
יום אחד אני מקבל מכתב מהבית, אחי כותב מכתב, אני זוכר יום חמישי בערב, כותב מכתב ואומר שאבא קיבל התקפת לב, הוא במצב אנוש. עכשיו המכתב הזה יצא, נגיד ביום ראשון, ואני קיבלתי אותו ביום חמישי. היום קשה להבין את זה, איך לא מטלפנים, איך אני לא יודע מה, איך לא שולחים מברק, שום דבר, לא, כתבו ככה. עכשיו אני מקבל מכתב כזה, מה אני צריך לחשוב? ומה, כן? אז אני הכנסתי מכתב לרבי, שאחי כתב כך וכך, וכותב שמצב אנוש, וכתבתי, כבר אינני יודע מה לחשוב. כך כתב ש... אז הרבי לקח את המצב הזה, עשה קו מתחת למילים האלה, כבר אינני יודע מה לחשוב, הוא כותב, ולפלא, שלושה סימני קריאה ככה, אתה רואה את העוצמה שבזה ככה, ולפלא, שהרי ידוע בכגון דע, ציווי נישואינו רבותינו, טראח גוט ודזן גוט, ואחכה לבשורות טובות. טוב, קיבלתי את המכתב הזה, ידעתי שם שאני חי, יום חמישי בלילה. עובר את השבת, ביום ראשון עזרתי אומץ וטלפנתי הביתה. אמא שלי מרימה את הטלפון, שאלתי אותה מה שם, אבא יצא מכלל סכנה. יצא מכלל סכנה, שאלתי אותה מתי, היא אומרת לי ביום חמישי. יום חמישי. טוב, יפה, טוב. עברתי את הכביש והלכתי במינכה שם, ואמרתי, שהרבי יוצא ממינכה, נו, הראתם שטויבס פמיר? שאל אותי. אמרתי לו, כן, יצא מכלל סכנה. אז הוא שואל אותי מתי, אמרתי לו, ביום חמישי בערב. כן, ביום חמישי בערב. הוא אומר לי, wenn את ihr ungeheben zu trachten gut, מתי אתה התחלת לחשוב טוב? כן, das nachher nicht treffen solche Sachen, das wissen alle Menschen zu trachten gut. זה שיותר לא יקרו מקרים כאלה, אבל שתדעו תמיד לחשוב טוב.
But how can we do this? Where are we expected to find the strength? The Rebbe addresses this in the following talk. He quotes the verse from Isaiah, Behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick clouds the nations. And the answer we find in Kapitel Kuf Chaf Aleph, chapter 121 of Psalms. This talk is from 1980, Tufshin Mem Aleph.
Die Welt steht in einem Matzev Mavil. Mit allen Unionen, wie viel mit sagen, ist noch alles nicht genug, worden wir wesentlich mehr nicht wie ein Mixes von den Unionen Mavili. Aber es hat auch viele Beine, Bosser und Hakel Medien, als ein Matzev, was Lehoyo Kamel. Und sicher wird er das aber rauslassen, Hakel Lität. Ne Montover, aber ich hasse meistens, soll es schön haben, als Simcho, wie zwei das Emes verlangt, das heißt, als Simcha Mitis. Nicht kneipt die Back und sagt, wie bald damit darf sein so mehr. Ist machlich, als wird sein so mehr. Weg sich auf der Ruf die Scheide, was kann sein, a dover wie Fuche. Am im Mondbeem, soll sein, der Jisse na Simcha. Min has Cheshech, was a Cheshech die Chasse Ores. Bin Boschen, die Chasse Ores, der Chamavel die Keresler. Danach sagt man, das ist noch wenig, nur das ist noch ein Roffel, was noch mehr mich ist. Und in Simchen Alanes, mit allen Unionen und mit Afton, die Unionen, was verbunden mit der Chateve Bechul. Aber das dort nicht unter ihnen. A viele nicht in der Nähe von Nachli sein, die Minen von Asims, Kim Jose, bis wann ich das Tera Semes ist Neidolova, das er beim Asim Chamitis. Zu gehen, der Mismer Kufchof alles. Und sagt, dass in der Gamre kistieren nicht. Als zu gehen, der Linie von Maayin Jove Yezri. Und nicht in der Ruf der Pirush, dass Atmie und Scheile, wie kann jetzt base, nur dass gleich der gesagt von Panik, sie ist der Miedens Anese. Al Idens Eser ist Maayin. Bis wann es aber mir verbindet, dass in der Morde für Abisseno Nisieno, als das ist verbunden mit meinem Chazal HaYodur, als ein Masel Israel. Danach ist darf sich kommen, der Reise soll sein, nicht nur in der Kia Shevi, nicht nur in Masel Shebinishom, nicht nur in Yechidische Binishom. Will sich kommen, der dem soll das sein, Betev, Hanide, Vanigle, in Zorcho hat Tevlonu Tifta. Sagt mir gleich, als Ezri, Mim Hawaii, ist schon mein Wort, das hebt sich aus, wird Nimschach von Maayin, der Leis, Rames, Leidischum Eis, Leidischum Keis, danach wird es aber gleich Nimschach. Der Ezri, in Hawaii, ist schon mein Wort, wo das die Killer der Kohl, Seder, Eistalschus, bis der Mele Mazer tachten, schön tachten, le Matemen. Noch sagt man, man kommt darauf, in Mele Mazer tachten, darf man doch kommen, in Jonen mit Juchodi, was mit darf sie nicht bewohnen in der Mele Mischele Meilemisse. A viele nicht in Mele Masia Ruchni, kommt zu, a Schmire mit Juchebes. A Hine, le Jonen, le Jischen, Shemer Yisroel.
B'cha Hashem chasisi, ale v'osha lo'elam. In you, Hashem, I seek refuge. I shall never be disappointed. Let's sing a happy nigun to these words. Now, the approach we've been talking about is not only the concepts of bitachon and emunah, positive thinking and faith, but as parents in particular, we have a responsibility to protect our children, to insulate them. Now, we cannot lie to a child. The Rebbe spoke on many occasions how we can't tell children something that is untrue. We must tell the child the truth. However, we cannot frighten our children.
3 weeks. Double portion.
Take another one.
And good Hasidic doctor.
3 weeks ago, Chaya started about arthritis. About 4 years ago, she had a very high fan. We repeated the lab results. They were better this year, but they're still positive. But they're better. But we're still very concerned she could have some connective tissue disorder. We don't know what's the problem. We asked for the Rebbe's bracha, but she should be well.
You frightened your daughter, and that is not necessary at all. There's no thing, no cause to be frightened. And your discussion with the doctor is also a friend, and after that discussion with the rabbi is the difference of opinion of the doctrine, of the doctor. God Almighty bless you to have good news.
You know, the Rebbe treated us this way in his daily life. For 40 plus years, the Rebbe was on the receiving end of a constant, unending torrent of letters and phone calls with troubles and misfortunes. Now, they were brought to his door for his blessings, for his advice, or in many cases, just as a shoulder to cry on. You know, the Rebbe wouldn't let anyone open the incoming mail, and he held everything that was sent him in the utmost secrecy. But for whatever reason, there's an individual who told me that he saw some of that mail one time. And this fellow tells me that he just couldn't read more than a few letters. The terrible pain that the letters contained was just intolerable. But think of what the Rebbe projected to us. We got to see the Rebbe as an upbeat, positive person, always encouraging. Somehow, for years on end, the Rebbe managed to shield us from all of that and to truly be uplifted and uplifting. Now, there are hundreds of letters of the Rebbe on faith. They're not theoretical or far off. In the Rebbe's style, they're logical and convincing. Here's one that was just printed last week that I wanted to share. It's from 1965, and this woman's writing to the Rebbe that she's reading in the papers about nuclear war, and it's frightening her. So the Rebbe writes, I'm surprised with you. You know well the verse, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. And the other verse, God is with me, I shall not fear. And the Rebbe goes on to say there was a similar sentiment in the war in 1914 when they began to use airplanes and then bombs with poison gas. And this is similar to what people were saying in the Middle Ages when they began to use gunpowder. And in almost every generation, there's such a fear. And anyone who knows world history know that this has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. And the Rebbe concludes with, I think that your evil inclination is frightening you, and suggests that she check the mezuzahs in her home. Now, is there something to be learned from this whole business? The Rebbe would do this quite often. When there was a negative event in the world, he'd say there's something positive that we could learn from it. So let's have a look at this talk of the Rebbe in the beginning of 1986. It's a short clip that we'll be sharing, but the talk is quite in depth. And the Rebbe speaks about nuclear bombs and the threat, how there's a madman threatening the entire world with annihilation, and how with one button in his hands, he can unleash destruction upon the entire world. Now that's crazy and it's scary, and what does it all mean?
In the letzten Chedoshim, also getroffen Erscheinungen in Terror, sie Earthquakes, Erdzitternissen, Charbonis und Verspritzungen in Asene Medinis, was die 10 Jahr noch anhand nicht gewähren, und so hat mit sich gebracht Asenis und Carbonis in die 10 und die 100er und die 1000er. Wie man das gesehen, gerade die letzte Gedosche. Auch der sehen die Jachsen zwischen Menschen, ist noch keinmal nicht gewähren, Asamin, Sakona und Asamin, ist Nachschuss an Gegenstellen sind von 2 Machten, was eine ist nicht Maske mit der zweite
Und jeder von sie, ruft sich an, als sie, die, was darf sein, der Schagit, bechol oilem kulei, was bischaß mit Gita kuk auf dem Maimi du Masse. Und danach hat man am Red, am darf machen von der Welt, als sie soll sein am Nord, was verschafft, vergnügen dem Ebersten, ist das Lecheele im Ganzen nicht Masse. Und in Astira, Achigdebo, ein sagt zu der Zweite. Und was noch mehr, wie bald hat die Kasche ist geworden in den letzten Jahren, wenn dafür der Enscher auf der Scheibe echt liegen, in die Erscheinungen, was sie seien nischadisch geworden, darf in den letzten Jahren. Und das, was nischadisch geworden, darf schon im Achiach Reinisi. Amit Akamus Achiktana, und bloß Elam mit Atem, Bishas mit das nur Eisnutzen, Leide Keches und Leide Sechel, wo der Eberster hat gegeben und Eisnutzen das, in der gute Richtung kommen mit der kleinen Kamus Mamash. Ufton a Shinui, wo der Shinui soll der Griechen berege kememre, bechol Elam Kule. Wo das nicht gewähren in der friedliche Idee ist nicht gewähren die ganze Möglichkeit bis Gallus. Wo das verantwortet die Scheibe, was kann ein Mensch rufen. Und was sie konnte rufen mit den Meister. In Asami Neffen, was bringen die Schuhe war Zolle zu der ganzen Welt. Emistake der Rambam passend, dass sie auf in Haloch. Und ist Aida Maimi, wenn mir gelebt hat, der Rambam hat sie auch gepasst und die das sicher will aber recht, man soll das geben zu verstehen. Bis Aposchut, fragt was sie kann, das sucht und durch ein und einzige Meister und bringe Yeshua Zolle lechol Eber. Sagt man, der was quetscht an dem Knäppel, ist nicht mechuyiv sein der größer Melume und verstehen, was sie der Atem arbeitet und was sie durch den Knäppel wird das ankommen zu sehen, kol Elam Kulei, das was wird von dem verlangt, die mehr nicht. Der meiste Pschuto, soll umquetschen den passigen Knäppel in der passigen Zeit und dann das wie mit das. Wie der Mond frie durch Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Neich lechol Elam Kulei und durch Taryag Mitzvahs Libnei Israel bishad der Rebester alidei Shlucha, wo durch sein Teire, Vekayetze Baze wird zuführen zu dem passigen Knäppel und zuführen in der richtigen Zeit und sagen, was da verquetscht oder demut wird sein oder der, was wird durchführen, Befehl, bringe Yeshua Zolle lechol Elam Kulei, Mamosh bechol dalit katzvei oret.
So I'd like to suggest perhaps the lesson here might be in that infection curve. We keep seeing these curves, how one person infects, two, who in turn infect, four, and of course the goal is to flatten that curve. But what might it look like on the side of good? Imagine each of us affect two people, who in turn affect four people, and we've all seen that curve, how before long at all, it grows to hundreds of thousands, and that we need to increase that curve. I also want to note the brief mention there by the Rebbe of the 7 Noahide commandments. And this is something the Rebbe spoke about quite a lot, how we as Jews have a responsibility, and we're actually required by halacha, Jewish law, to influence civilization for the better and to teach them the 7 Noahide laws, which is the only way to have a civilized world, the Rebbe taught. So to me, it seems that at some point soon, perhaps while this terrible plague is still sweeping across the world, maybe in its aftermath, we will be called upon to serve our role as a light unto the nations. Because when such a traumatic event occurs, people begin to search for meaning, and we need to be prepared for that. And this terrible thing is affecting the entire world. Of course, I'm not referring to touting the lack of morals as a reason for all of this, but more specifically, as a way to fill a void that exists. Now, is there anything that Torah prescribes to immunize ourselves from this miserable virus? There are a number of different things, but let's focus on one of them. On a number of occasions, the Rebbe suggested that Torah study in general and a specific course of daily Torah study in particular can do that job.
Der Rambam allein schreibt, dass der Misper HaHaloch ist, das Pegim, sagt auf der die Gemorre, als Pegimel machlis ist da, und Duru, was ist da der Achilu stief und der Morden, wie sie darf zu sein, was reise Machla Mikir Becho, was Machli Bigematri Pegimel, und durch was ist mir das Mevatel, durch Achilu stief, wie die Gemorre tatscht das auf, paar Schachlis, wie Kajese Base, und wo das verbunden an Chaya Neshoma, was Chaya Neshoma ist der Achilu stief, der Linie von Teiro, fahre Seche, der Mischne-Teire, wer tegen voneinander geht, den Pei-Gimel Haloch ist, wo das in der Wattel und was Reise Machla Mikir Becher. Und wie der Reifen ist, in der Refuhr Shalamayla ist, Amila Chatchila Leosim Alech. Es ist nicht, da wie der Rambam so kechert in Ilchis Deis, also da, ich fahne mir Refuhr. Aber Schaß es sie da macht und dann noch, weil sie wird mir nicht geheilt davon. Sagt aber gleich, als wird anschreiben, bei sie soll sich finden, und sagt, dämmelt ist nie maftiach, als mit Chanmila Chatchile nicht kommen, die dem machen. Und das ist der Reifen war Refuhr, Shalamaylo, wenn wird es sicher der Reifen war Refuhr, alle Idee hat Teire, und das ist sich mit nach Shamayim, ich meinte Kilecho, und wo sie Teire mit wir Fuhle Eilom, bis in der Neifen von der Fuhrschule Meile, als mir Lechatchile, Yosim Alecho, ki ani Hawaii Refecho, das ist der Reifen der Fuhr von Nebischen, und Nele wird es als der Reifen der Fuhr von Teire, wo das ist Dwar Hawaii, und befragt in Dwar Hawaii so Halocho, und das wird ein riesiger, bin Aloschen, Psor und Bruder, in dem Sefer Haloches, und das ist der Mischne Teire. Von dem Rambam. Und das ist als Saïd oder Nachizut. Aber man soll noch mehr Nefi sein, zusammen mit Limud, Teresche Bixav und Teresche Balper, gefragt und Nimis Atero, gefragt die Schülin von Chitas eingestellt durch Neside Reino. Der Limud, der Mischne Tere, der Rambam. Und das sind alle Unionen, will noch mehr zuheilen, dem Kim HaYud, und bis man hu lehi schon leimilchome veletachrus velekino mit alle Unionen bildet zu ihm was rechnet ist und sie sein du molle hores dea savai kamaim la yom chasni.
The Rebbe referred there at the end to the study of Chitas and Rambam. Chitas is the daily study of Chumash, reciting Tehillim every day, and studying Tanya. And Rambam, which is something that the Rebbe began, is a study of 3 chapters of Maimonides, which allows you to finish the entire book in about a year. 1 chapter is another track, which allows you to finish in about 3 years. And the book of Mitzvahs, Sefer HaMitzvahs, which you go through in about a year. Now, there's a letter from the Alter Rebbe. There was a terrible fire that somebody had, and Alter Rebbe wrote that after a fire, one becomes rich, because after severity comes divine mercy. Now, it's interesting that the Rebbe applies it to a situation, I saw in a letter, where somebody had a flood, which means essentially that we can apply this to every situation. After severity comes mercy. May Hashem bless us that after this dramatic worldwide disaster, we experience a tremendous measure of Hashem's mercy and blessings. I'd like to wrap up with a talk of the Rebbe. It's actually on the new chapter of Psalms that we just began saying for the Rebbitzin on her birthday, the 25th of Adar. It's Kapitel Kuf Chaf, chapter 120. And it's from an address to children in summer 1982.
Als gefindt sich in einer Zorre, in einer Lenkschaft, Tore sich nicht erschrecken, Chas v'Sholem, worin hat sein Kommandier in Schiff, und zu ihm ruft ist eine sichere Sache, aber ja nein, als entfert und noch mehr, par den Posig sagt man, Shir HaMeilis, aber sagt das mit der Gesang und mit der Freilichkeit, worin sie ist eine sichere Sache, Adosse, was sie Bazzorossi, das mehr nicht, als Sache, Rega, Kotten, auf eine kleine Weile, und gleich wie Korossia, mit Wenzel, und ruft den Nebischen, ist bei ja Neini, und war sehr viel sicherender, als noch Edesse dort der Korossi, ist beim Schein dort der Zustand von Shir HaMeilis, als singt und lebt dem Ewigsten, was hat damals wird übergekehrt werden, als anstatt Bazzorossi, wie der Baal Shem Tov teitscht, wird von Azore, wird eine Linie von Seher, als wird aufgeöffnet, als Halle, ein Fenster in der Finsternis von der Zore, von dem Golus, und sie wird gleich sehr eine Lichtigkeit, als sie wird lichtig noch sein, die in Golus, worum ist durchgenommen mit Tero, mit der Lichtigkeit von Tero, und das ist einfach sehr viel sicher, aber noch gleich, noch jeder hebt an die Milchome, und jeder noch sie dort der Karossi von der Zora, singt mir schön am Marsch von den Sochen, a Schiff, und in der Nähe von Hamailis als Hecher und Hecher, und noch ist selbstverständlich, als kommt gleich der Korossi, und kommt gleich der Vajaneni, und als echt in der größten Engschaft, wo das ist auch der Golus, in welche jeder von uns gefindet sich, gedenkt wir nur mehr sicher, aber das sind nicht wie eine Verweile, und sie hängt dort nur in dem, als sie sein Korossi, aber mit Singen, Moschiach Nau, und mit Rufen zu den Nebelsten, und sagen ihm, Lichosro Kevino Kol Hayel, aber mir hofft auf seine Hilfe den ganzen Tag, wie damals wie der Rambam sagt, Niyad Heini Goli, als kommt gleich der Vajaneni, und mir geht Reis, mit Kabel sein Pnei Mishiach Sidkeno, was wird doch angerufen, Melech HaMoshiach.
Now, this clip just came in as we're wrapping up, and I wanted to share it. But first, let me say a thank you to Rabbi Shmuley Horowitz, who helped me pull together all of this material, as well as Rabbi Moshe Gurari. Eli Sapo produced the video and edited it. Let me give you the background of this story. This is Mrs. Sarah Gutnick from Australia. Her mother is Mrs. Devorah Halberstam, and her brother is Ari Halberstam. The year was 1988, right after the Rebbetzin passed away. Now, the first night of Pesach, Mrs. Halberstam realized that the Rebbe was going to be doing the Seder all alone. So she sent her son, Ari, to Shul, and she told him to invite the Rebbe to their Pesach Seder. They didn't want the Rebbe to be alone. The Rebbe smiled and thanked him and said, halachically, there's a problem because I already lit the candles in my office. But please tell your mother, thank you very much.
The next year, as my father and Ari were getting ready to go to Shul for Mariv to daven with the Rebbe, they had a custom that after Mariv, they would get matzahs from the Rebbe. As the Rebbe's staff, they would get matzahs, the whole matzahs, they would share with their family on Seder night. And as Ari and my father were getting ready to go to Shul, my mother turned to Ari and she said, Ari, when you go to the Rebbe for matzahs, you must tell him that my mother doesn't want the Rebbe to be alone at the Seder this year. Will the Rebbe please come and join our family? Ari was almost 12 years old at the time, and of course he was shy and he was reluctant, but my mother said, please do this for me, and Ari agreed. That night, when Ari went past the Rebbe, he said to the Rebbe, Rebbe, my mother would like the Rebbe to come and join us for the Seder. She doesn't want the Rebbe to be alone at the Seder this year. Will the Rebbe please come and join our family? And the Rebbe said to Ari, please tell your mother, thank you very much, but I won't be alone at the Seder. My father-in-law will be with me.
Referring, of course, to the previous Rebbe who passed away in 1950. The reason I'm sharing this story is quite obvious. Many of us will be alone for the Pesach Seder for the first time, and it might be difficult, but we need to remember Hashem is with us, the Rebbe is with us, and next year we'll all be together in Yerushalayim. Shana haba b'Yerushalayim. And on that note, let's finish with the song, We Want Mashiach Now.
We want Mashiach now.
This concludes the Farbrengen. Just a reminder to everybody to make sure to do Mechiras Chometz, to sell their Chometz either through the UOS website or through Chabad.org, and as well to remember to make an Erev Tavshilin on Erev Yom Tov. L'chaim, good Yom Tov.